Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Boro Fan TV and the Monday Night Show with me, James Hutchinson. Not the week we were hoping for on the pitch as Boro emerged from their 2 games with QPR and Derby with a solitary point. Boro fans, as always, we'd love to hear your reactions on those 2 games. Has it caused you to revise your hopes for the season, or are you still optimistic that Warnock's men can be challenging at the top end of the table? Joining me to look back on those games are David Campbell and Damon LaRoche. Welcome aboard, lads.
Evening, guys.
Evening. Good to have you with us, boys. All right, Damon. We've also got the weekend, as well as looking back on those games, we're going to look ahead to the weekend clash with Tony Mowbray and Danny Ayala returning with Blackburn Rovers. And we're also going to have a chat about the transfer speculation. Just over a week to go before the transfer window closes, so the latest speculation involving Boro players who may be on the way out and who may be coming in. As always, Boro fans, we appreciate your thoughts and opinions, so get in touch with us. Let us know what you're thinking on tonight's show. So, David, come to you first. QPR last week. It's our first league defeat of the season under the lights against Queen's Park Rangers. And like the game itself, I think there was performances that were very contrasting within that game. We'll start with the positives first. I thought Ikpeazu and Crooks got their second goals of the season, and they, again, had quite an impact on the game, didn't they, mate?
They did, and Isaiah Jones as well looked light. So it's important when you look at a defeat sometimes to look at the bigger picture. It's disappointing from where the game would have went for 10 minutes when they went down to 10 men, but people talk about the refereeing decisions, and I think that's just making excuses up, to be fair. But yeah, there was some positives in there. I thought Jed Spence played well first half. Second half, he dipped out a little bit. That's 2 weeks in a row now we've seen positive performances of him. So hopefully that if Warnock's finally getting a tune out of him, and like you say, Ikpeazu and the Crooks goals, I thought he was a real handful throughout the game, Crooks, and his finish was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. And as David said there, Damon, we were 1-0 up at half-time. And again, in that half and throughout the game, Isaiah Jones caught the eye, didn't he?
Absolutely. I've said it time and time again. It's what we've been craving for years. Excuse me, with his pace. Pace kills teams off no matter what you've got. He's making do with what he's got, and he's doing really well as Isaiah Jones. And I was pleased with, as I said, David said, Jed Spence. Jed Spence was magnificent. And as I say, he dipped out, but you can't expect too much too soon, can you? I mean, it's early on. So,
yeah. And David, I think in the first 45 minutes, for all 1 or 2 people, and maybe even Warburton himself, the manager at QPR, was saying that they maybe didn't reach the standards that they normally aspire to. You could see that QPR are a good footballing team, the movement, the passing. But I think what was even more evident after the break, and you mentioned about the decisions and the sending off, that once even they went down to 10 men, we struggled to contain them, particularly in midfield.
Oh, yeah.
Why do you think that was the case, David?
There was a massive gap between midfield and defence, and Chris Willock was exploiting it by just getting into the number 10 role, and Howson and McNair didn't know whether to track with him or fill in. And they just got caught mindful. We're very, very rigid in our play at times. We don't support the front men, and at times we don't support our defence. Our midfield just gets bypassed, which is a bit of a concern. And it was similar to in the first half against Derby on Saturday, but I know you'll probably want to touch upon that later. But Howson, he just needs to sit in front of the back four at times like that. And you need someone who can roam around him, because we were just getting outrun. Let's not take away from QPR that they were decent in possession. But as soon as they went to 10 men, it's hard to beat 10 men. But 10 men shouldn't be dominating the game. And when they went to 10 men, they were still dominating us and cutting through our midfield, which was a massive concern for myself. I don't know what you guys thought.
Yeah, I was just going to say, did it not surprise you that Neil Warnock didn't take any action with regards to that, David?
It did. I mean, he had the legs on there. For me, everybody's crying out for Piero for that bit of creativity, but you might be expecting a little bit too much for him to come on and change a game at this moment until he adjusts. Because we were getting so overrun, Morsey was a substitution for me. Howson kept getting caught. You could have gone to a wing backs and dropped McNair back, and he just didn't seem. I think he felt too confident. I don't know what about you guys, but I think when he went to 10 men, he thought we had the ability to beat it. But even before they got the equaliser, the winner, sorry, they were overrunning us, and the signs were there.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on that, Damon?
Yeah, see, for me, Johnny Howson, as David touched up on it there, is I think Johnny Howson should be more used as a centre-back now, because he has played there. And he's played there before. I think he'd be better off in that position because of his legs and given his age. I think he'd do all right there. But then again, we were so slack conceding them goals. Chris Willock's goal and Lyndon Dykes, how the keeper couldn't save that, I'd never know. It's beyond me. But there's questions all across the back four. It doesn't just come with it has to come with the entire back line. But Dale Fry is probably, out of all of them, is the only standout one that played all right.
The only thing for me, David, I don't know what you guys think, but with Dale Fry, I don't feel comfortable with him as left centre back. Last season, when he was dominating, he was like in the back five. He was either in the central or on the right, and he just looked a more composed figure.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you there, David, that Paul Kearney's been touching. He said, "Do you think we're playing the right formation? And do you think with the players that we've got, do we maybe suit having a back three or a back five more than having a flat back four, or is it?" At the minute, we're going back four most of the time because he's trying to accommodate Isaiah Jones, and he's probably our one big attacking threat.
Yeah, it's Paul's touched upon a funny conversation we were having at the Derby game on Saturday, because he went for a flat back five with a wing backs, but it turned into a flat back five against Derby, and we were non-existent. And when we started in the flat back four against QPR, we were on the front foot, but then we got beat. And we got beat quite comfortably in the end, in my opinion. So I don't think we actually know what our strongest formation is. And I don't know if that's dictated to, like you touched upon there, trying to accommodate Isaiah Jones, because Isaiah Jones can't play wing back. No. But he started as a left midfielder with Boro as the left wing back in a five behind him on Saturday. And Isaiah Jones was just missing for the first half completely. We just couldn't get him into the game because Bowler was too close to him. So I think with Isaiah Jones, and if you're going to play wingers, you're going to have to go to a back four.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Michael Pellin's been in touch. Damon, hope you're well, Michael. He said, we seem to have gone backwards from our opening two games. Is it a little bit of a case, though, Damon, that we're only 4 games into the season? We don't want to go overboard about comparing performances, and is it too soon to say, things have maybe fallen off a little bit, the wheels have fallen off a little bit, or are you concerned by what you've seen in the last 2 games?
I'm concerned for supporters when they say the wheels are falling off, when I think it's early days for me. I think fans just need to check themselves a bit and look at the bigger picture. Really, wait till the end of the window. Wait till these players bed in. But unfortunately, Middlesbrough haven't got time for these to bed in. We've got to get. We want the fans expect things up and running straight away, and it doesn't work like that. For me, it's. For me, I think we need to be positive though going forward, instead of being negative all the time. And my only criticism with Warnock is that he doesn't put on the sub sooner. Whether he's got outlets, like as David said, Morsey there, he should have used him. For me, he should have come on. So maybe Coburn should have come on. If I wouldn't have put Akpom on at all, because he's going anyway, so I wouldn't have used him at all.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Yeah. Gareth Cole's been in touch, David. He said, evening, lads. I don't think Warnock knows our strongest team is. He's looking still to get players in, and there might be a few leave over the next week that are more Warnock-type faces. Do you think that's a fair point?
I definitely agree with Gav saying he doesn't know his strongest 11. Warnock-type players, I think the people we're getting linked with are definitely not Warnock-type players, and I've got a funny feeling that we're looking beyond Warnock there, especially with his comments saying the deal is now to do with him via Mitchell van Bergen. And personally, I'm pleased with that because it looks like we're making progress beyond Warnock, and that was my biggest worry when we carried Warnock on from last season. But just touching on something what Damon was saying there, I think it's important that fans remember we brought 9 players in, and we're potentially going to be bringing another 2 to 3 players in before the window shuts. So we need to give these players time to gel. So performances aren't really essential at the moment. Maybe they will come, but if it gets to end of September, October, and the performances and results still aren't there, then I think we've got something to worry about. I think just criticising them on the 4 games with the massive rebuild we've had in the summer. If you look at all other teams in the Championship, they haven't had a rebuild like us. And I think that's important for fans to remember. And that's not me trying to defend Warnock for the negative results. I'm just thinking, be a bit more realistic with it. I don't know if you guys would agree with that. But
I would say it's matter of fact, isn't it? That's exactly what's happened. There's a big turnover of players going and coming in. And I think that's a fair point made. Chris Sykes is agreeing with you there as well, David. He's saying, I think we'll be fine once everything's in place regarding the players that are coming in and out. Going back to the QPR game, you mentioned Dale Fry there, Damon. And Patrick Wheatley's been in touch with us, and he said he thought that Dale Fry cost us the game against QPR and Hall as well. And I think we need another centre-back. Is it simple enough to blame the centre-back pairing? Because, I mean, we've touched on there that midfield got overrun. And I don't think Joe Lumley was blameless in what went on. I think Neil Warnock ended up saying by the end of the week that he was rubbish on Wednesday night. And there was a fair few people that didn't have the best performances last Wednesday, wasn't there, Damon?
Yeah, I mean, when you see it in person to when you watch it on TV, it's a different story altogether. I mean, me looking at it from where I was sat, Dale Fry, there was poor marking all round. Let's be honest. You can hold your hands up all day and you can say whatever you want. It's the fact being that the old backline was to blame for them goals conceding, and Joe Lumley. It was poor Wednesday, but he made up for it against Derby. He pulled off some really great saves against Derby. I mean, that scoreline, we could have easily went there and got beat if Lumley had let them goals in. Easily.
We'll get onto that later in the show, mate. But going back to QPR again, David, I think as well as we maybe managed that game against Fulham in the first match of the season, I've lost David now. Hopefully we'll get him back on. Yeah, he's back. You all right, David?
Internet dropped out.
I was just going to mention to you there, David, I thought the first game of the season, relatively speaking, we managed the game quite well against Fulham. We stayed in it. And I think in comparison, last Wednesday, we didn't manage that game well at all. Both when QPR were with 11 men and then even more so when they went down to 10 men. In comparison to our visitors, QPR, where do you see Boro in relation to them this season in the Championship? Do you think they'll be one of our main competitors for a playoff place, or do you think they are quite a way advanced of us?
It's hard to say because QPR tend to go through dips every season, don't they, where they're going strong and then they just plummet. I wouldn't say they were a good possession team, but they were there to be got at. Mm-hmm. And, I think everybody on the football bets had them to beat Barnsley at the weekend and, look what happened there. So I think they're very going to be similar to us where they're going to hover around the playoffs. I don't think they're outstanding, but they're exactly where we're at as a club at the moment in terms of what we're trying to achieve. And like we seen with Barnsley last year, all it takes is a good run and you can possibly get in there. But like you were saying about the comparison between the Fulham I think the Fulham one, we had no expectations going in there, and the pressure was off us.
Yeah.
So our mindset was just go out there and keep it tight. Where when you're playing the likes of Bristol City and at QPR at home, the fans want to see that a little bit more. And I think maybe Warnock, especially as he didn't make those changes when there were 10 men, I think he thought it was going to be a lot easier than it actually was.
Yeah, valid points made, pal. Mark Knott, thanks for getting in touch with us again, mate. He said Dale Fry has moments in most games that can cause us problems. 90% of the time he's great, but 10% of the time he loses his concentration. He's still young and learning his craft. And I think that last bit there sums it up. He is a player with a lot of potential, but he's still learning the game, isn't he, Damon? So when people are mentioning things about huge transfer fees, you've got to temper that with thinking he's still a lad that's learning his game, isn't he, in his trade?
Absolutely. I mean, he's a quality centre-back, make no bones about it. And you can see why the likes of Southampton, Leicester and a few top teams are after him in the Premier League. It's the same goes with Jed Spence last year. It's exactly the same situation. If they're going to play well, and they're under 20-odd-year-olds, then you're putting yourself in the shop window, aren't you? And you're going to expect big money to come in for these types of players. But Warnock wants to. I think Warnock's had some securities that he thinks he's going to hold on to him, but I'm not sure if the money's right. I think the money he'll be gone.
Can I ask you guys a question regarding Dale Fry? Do you think he needs a leader alongside him? Because I don't see Grant Hall as a vocal leader. And I know he was captain at QPR, but he's not a Daniel Ayala type.
I see very similar traits in Fry to what I saw with Ben Gibson. And I think he's a similar sort of centre-half to Ben Gibson. I think Ben Gibson's more of a leader and grew into being a leader. But I think in his early days, I think Dale Fry is just a similar sort of player, but he does benefit from having somebody, as you say, is quite vocal, will take the lead on things. I don't think he doesn't strike me as being a dominant centre-half.
Can you see him developing that side of his game though, James? Because personally, I can't. No. He's been in the first team for like 3 to 4 years now, and he's still not vocal enough.
Yeah. Patrick Wheatley, he said there, Sol Bamba. Would Sol Bamba be that man?
Potentially, yeah.
I think possibly.
Yeah, interesting. Well, Sol Bamba was one of our 9 signings so far over the summer. And before we get to the Derby game at the weekend, in the past week, there's been further modifications to Boro's squad. Toyosi Olasanya, got that right, I think.
Mr. T.
Yeah, an attacker has joined us from Billericay Town on a 2-year deal. Damon, Neil Warnock said this one's on him if it doesn't work out. But to all intents and purposes, it's a low-risk signing, isn't it?
It is, but you've got to look. You've got to look at players that I've progressed from non-league. Jamie Vardy, take him. I'm not saying he's going to be in the same league as Jamie Vardy, no doubt, but he's got to be given a chance, and you can only step up, and you put the opposition in front of you. I think this lad's got potential. He's pacey. I've seen him in a few YouTube videos, and he's a good player. I really like him.
Okay. And David, in contrast to players joining the squad, left out of the squad on Saturday after coming off the bench last Wednesday was Chuba Akpom. The back end of last week, Galatasaray were linked with making a £2 million bid for him. It now appears as though he's returning back to PAOK Athens on a loan deal, with Boro apparently picking up half of his wage. What do you make of the whole deal and how it's turned out for Chuba?
It's a shocking piece of business, isn't it? And personally, I believe this signing and why it hasn't worked out lays firmly on Neil Warnock's hands. And I'm not talking about Chuba Akpom's performance against QPR or whatnot, but I actually feel a little bit sorry for Chuba Akpom because he came in, he had a good couple of games to start with, and then he got dropped after scoring, 3 games on a bounce when he first signed, or 3 and 5?
He definitely scored the first 2, didn't he?
Yeah, and he was playing well, and then the next minute he's out the team, and then he was struggling to get in, and he was in and out, and then famously Warnock came out and said, after telling us all fans he was his number one choice, he then absolutely slaughtered him in the national press, saying we signed him on videos and he wasn't my signing. And you're just killing confidence of a player then. And I've personally, every opportunity from what I see from press conferences, Warnock's having a dig at Akpom. And for me, that is extremely poor, bad management. And I believe if there was a different manager in charge, we might have seen a different Chuba Akpom. I'm not saying he's been great throughout his year, but I'm just saying the way he's been handled is being shocking. And to get only 50% of his wages, I think that just shows you Neil Warnock wants him so far away from the club as possible. And I don't think we should be blaming Akpom and saying it hasn't worked out because of his faults. I think the blame should lie at Warnock's feet for that one.
Interesting. What do you think about that, Damon?
I mean, for me, I agree with what he said, what David's saying there, but I also agree with Warnock's number one choice was Kiefer Miller, wasn't it? He wanted Kiefer Miller. That was the top and bottom of it. He wanted it, and because he went to Cardiff, he went after, was it Mullen? Was it from Cambridge? And then because he couldn't get him, it was someone else, and then we ended up with Akpom.
Yeah, I think it's just when he's saying that Akpom, he's been wanting him for a number of years, been tracking him and what have you.
Yeah. I agree with what you're saying there, because if it was me and I was signing for the Boro and he said, I didn't want him, I wanted someone else, I'd be so disappointed. I'd want to leave. You know what I mean?
And I think there's an element in truth in this as well that Patrick Wheatley's mentioned, David, that it was getting so close towards the end of the transfer window last year that Chuba Akpom was a bit of a panic buy. It needed to get another body on board because Britt and Fletcher obviously had the fitness issues and he wanted backup, and there was an element of that which we can't get away from, really, can we?
No, and I think it was a bit of a media storm as well, saying we've spent 2.75 million on a player, so it was like we're trying to compete as well. I think it was a bit of a publicity stunt for the fans as well, to say, look, we are ambitious, but let's not forget the money that we saved in wages and stuff last season contributed to Akpom coming in.
Yeah, true. Well, obviously, Damon, it looks as though Akpom's on his way anytime soon, which suggests then that Spora must be coming in pretty imminently. And obviously there's the Mitchell van Bergen rumours that are still going around that he's on his way from Herenveen. Do those two potential signings excite you?
I don't know much about Spora, but the Van Bergen deal, he does excite me because he's like Isaiah Jones. He's fast, dynamic, bit like what Adama was as well. He's a bit like Ismail, but obviously a bit more like, I'm going to say easy to sugar off the ball, but it's not as muscly as Adama is. But he's a good player, yeah, for sure. And I would love to see him in a Boro shirt, as I would any potential signing that comes into this football club. I'll make them. I'll welcome with open arms. But if they come here and don't perform well, the fans will let them know for sure.
Yeah. Just going back, David, to Chuba Akpom, Craig Collintine, I don't know if you saw the comment there, said that Akpom wasn't good enough. I don't think we can look past that in terms of his stats and the goals that he got. And not the best signing. And Paul Lewis also mentioned that we haven't had a decent striker for years. So, and Michael Pellin again back in touch. Piezo's done more in a handful of games than Asombalonga, Akpom and Guesty did in numerous games. And it's almost as though the club has become a bit of a graveyard for strikers in recent years, hasn't it?
Yeah, we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago, weren't we? Like, when have we, apart from Patrick Bamford, when have we bought a striker in and progressed his career and signed him on for a profit? It tends to be the players for our strikers come at the back end of the career and the careers start going downhill once it was. And it's a bit of a grey area we've got with the Boro fans, that we can't stick down a number 9 and number 10 and improve them and sell on with a profit. And it's something that needs looking at. I'm sure this Kieran Scott will be certainly looking at that. And you mentioned about Ikepezu there. Yeah, he started bright. It's only a start. Let's not forget, if he doesn't get 15 goals and what have you, he plays with his heart and his sleeve. But on Saturday at Derby, we don't play it with strengths. You know, he's a handful, but we don't get balls into the box and crosses, and that's what he's going to thrive off.
Yeah. Just your mate David, Steve Golby's been in touch, and he said he's anxious for Boro this season. I worry about the transfers coming in with no championship experience. Surely for a couple of million you can get good championship players, but it's not always as simple as that, is it, David?
We've been down that route before, haven't we, with the good championship players, and then they just don't seem to hit here. I think the fans like the excitement of a bit of the unknown with an unknown quality from a foreign league, and I don't think they come with as much pressure, because to analyse their performances, sometimes it takes about a year or so to see the strengths and weaknesses, where when you buy championship players, you already tend to know the ins and outs of their game. So both have positive and negatives, but for me, I'd rather go overseas, find a hidden gem and sell on with profit. I don't know about you, but it excites me a little bit more.
Yeah, and then I think that's where he's looking in the Dutch league, because there's a lot of hidden gems in there.
Yeah,
I know for a fact he is. So
well, obviously, if Van Bergen comes in, you've obviously got Isaiah Jones on the other side at the minute, and Julie Campbell's been in touch. Thanks for watching, Julie. And she's mentioned if you've got a direct winger like Jones, and we're going to add to pace and creativity on the other side, rather see Ikepezu spend more time up top than wrestling with his opponents. And obviously, Ikepezu should feed off these crosses. It should be meat and drink for him, shouldn't it, David?
It should be there. That's what we need to play to his strengths for. I mean, the weekend playing the wing backs, Peltier and Bowler was back five, and they weren't getting past the halfway line, and we could not create anything other than the odd set piece, and it was very worrying. And yeah, I think if you have pace either side, it just causes absolute mayhem, and especially if you've got Crooks and Ikepezu with a bit of strength in the air, it should get you goals.
Yeah, Steve Crampburn's been in touch. We'll just chat about this before we move on to the Derby game, Damon. He said, do you believe Boro's strengths this season are more long ball rather than playing football through midfield now that we have a target man? And that would sort of fit the template that Neil Warnock has often used of playing a big man up top and getting the ball forward as quick as possible. Or do you think that's just too crude of a way of looking at it? Do you think his teams do play football at times, Damon?
No, I think the best thing is to be fast and mobile with it, not sideways passing, as I've seen against QPR Wednesday night. It was sideways, back over. There was not enough vigor going forward, and that's what we're lacking as a club going forward. That caliber going forward and that creativity. I think that's why Piero was brought in to do that. But obviously, as David said, he needs time to settle in.
Stephen's comments valid, mind.
Yeah.
The only problem I'd say with that is it's not going to be entertaining with a long ball, and you've seen that under Neil Warnock previously at Cardiff, and obviously the famous Tony Pulis at Boro. If results don't go your way and you can only play one way, long direct balls, the fans will soon let you know. There was a time when Morsey went back 10 yards at Derby at the weekend, and he got massive stick from the Boro crowd.
Yeah. Well, going to go to that game now, David. The trip to the iPro, Derby County, and the manager's team selection before the game, that raised a few eyebrows. There was a return for Tavernier and Morsey, and a change in role for McNair and Dykesdale. What was your take when that team was announced, David?
I just didn't know what formation we were going to set off with, and we touched upon it, didn't we, before? Yeah. I'm thinking, is it wing backs? Is it a back four? Is it three in midfield? And it wasn't until the first 5 minutes when it sort of settled down, you could see the formation and we'd set. But it was a very strange starting lineup, and I understood about bringing Tavernier back if he was fit enough, but we just bypassed him. We couldn't get him in the game because we were playing with a black 5 at the end because Derby pushed us so far back. We were just bypassing our midfield again, and Tavernier he wasn't on the pitch. Second half, when we went to a back 4, we started to create a few more chances, but that first half was extremely concerning to watch. And it's no disrespect to Peltier, but when Spencer's had a good, I mean, I'm not Spencer's biggest fan, but he's had 2 good games on a bounce. I don't see the need to drop him. I could see why he wanted to freshen stuff up by taking Morsi in for Howson, because Howson has been poor the last couple of weeks. But the starting lineup was extremely concerning for myself, and that echoed around the ground. Actually, quite a lot of the fans were saying, "I can't see us getting anything from this first half with that starting lineup."
Damon, do you think in a way I don't think there was a lack of endeavour from Boro at the weekend. I don't think you could point the finger in terms of lack of effort, but there was a lack of quality, certainly in the first half, without doubt. But do you think in a way it's also that Neil Warnock was concerned of losing the game? He just didn't want to lose a game, and was that maybe reflected in his selection?
I think so, yeah. I mean, as David said, I was surprised by the team selection on Saturday. I mean, Peltier for one coming in as well to drop Johnny Howson. But he lives and dies by the mistakes, does Neil Warnock, and I don't think Tav should have played because he's clearly not fit enough. And even he said afterwards, Tav, he'd come out and said, I needed 1 more week with the physios. I thought I was going to get a week off, but he that's what he basically said in a caption on Middlesbrough FC website. And I just think it was a poor game all round. We had chances to win the game and we didn't take them, did we? So, but we didn't get beat, and that's all. That's a good thing. We took a point and we move on.
A very average Derby side, though, it must be said.
Yeah, it was very much so. Full of youngsters, and like players that I didn't even recognise apart from Ravel Morrison, of course.
Yeah, so, Mark Knott's been in touch again there, boys, and he said it was back to the lack of drive of last season against Derby. We tried to do a Barnsley and save it all for the second half, but we ran out of ideas. David, I just going back to Marcus Tavernier. Does it highlight how important he is in terms of the creativity and what he brings to the team that Warnock's willing to rush him back for a game on Saturday? But does it also show the lack of options we currently have without any further signings coming in?
I think both, James. I think you've hit the nail on the head for both of them, and I think it could also be a bit of a signal to Steve Gibson to look. I do need something to make happen, but it could have easily backfired on the other hand if he wasn't fit, and like Damon said, he needed an extra week off. That 1 week, he even said the physios advised him against it. He could have seriously got injured and ruled him out for the next 5 or 6 weeks. So I know sometimes you do need to take a gamble, but looking off this first half performance, you could tell Tavernier just wasn't with it. And that's no fault of Tavernier's own, because he'll play every game possible, won't he? You'd be led to believe, but it just wasn't the time to play him, in my opinion.
Yeah, look, I love this. We've got fans commenting on the game on Saturday and on the season in general so far. The contrast between fans who obviously go to the games, watch the games, follow the club. Got Matt Riley who's saying results will dictate how Boro fans will react, which is very true. I agree with that. However, the desire from the new signs has lifted everyone. Jones being a revelation. We just need to get the first few games until the squad is bolstered. Have faith in a proper footballing man, Neil Warnock. And then you've got Patrick Wheatley, who's worried about Boro. Even if we bring players in, I still think Boro will finish 12th this season, and we're just not good enough at the moment. If we need to beat top 6, we should be beating teams like Derby 4 or 5. Paul Lewis again, see after 10 matches, which I think is a very balanced way of looking at things. And Damon, it's tough because, as David touched on it earlier on the show, there was very little expectation when we went to Fulham opening game. But I think a lot of people in this past week have thought 4 points, maybe 6 points from the games with QPR and Derby, and we've ended up walking away with 1. And it's all about the Championship, as we know, we've seen it all too often over the years, is a league where you can never really predict what's going to happen next. It's an unpredictable league, and you've got to take the good weeks with the bad, and that's just how it is with the Boro, isn't it?
It is. This league is far better than any Premier League game in my view, and that's not me being biased. It's a fact, because you get entertainment every week. You get close games, you get hard dogged games, you get the grit and determination. You get everything what you expect for a Championship football game, and what you pay £30 a game for is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I mean, it's a bargain if you think about it. I mean, because if you pay that in the Premier League, you'll end up paying about £100 for a game to watch a 0-0 draw.
James, I mean, this just sums up that football is all different opinions, doesn't it? But Mark, Riley, and Patrick have both got valid points, and they've seen it from a different point of view. And that's just my opinion. Results will dictate the eye, and we do need to bolster the squad. But I can see where Patrick's also coming from. We should be beating teams like Derby. If we play Derby in 10 games' time and we've got all these signings in and the performances like how it was at the weekend, it's a different matter. But I can see the sides from both of their arguments, and I think that just sums up why football is fine margins. You know, Neil Warnock has got the footballing experience, but you could argue that the game's bypassed him now. It's a complete different league. It's different football, and the game's moved on. You look at Mourinho; he was very tactical. He tried that at Tottenham, and it backfired. So, you know, football is all about different opinions. People are going to disagree with what I say and what you guys say, and I think that's just the fine margins in football and why we all love it, really.
Yeah, I mean that's why I said, David, that if results weren't going the right way of Boro and Warnock said enough's enough, I'm walking away, do you think Kevin Blackwell should take over, right? Because of and Ronnie Jepson because of the situation, or do you think it should be someone else?
For me, I think you're just replacing Deadwood with Deadwood, and you keep the same philosophy by keeping those around. I think as soon as Warnock goes, you need a whole brand new identity, and I think that's what Kieran Scott's been brought in for. Myself, Damon, I don't know what you guys think, but look, Tony Pulis was getting results, and the football was poor, and the fans wanted him out. So yeah, it can work either way. I think if Warnock gets the results and it's bad performances, fans will stick with it. But as soon as the results stop and the performances are bad, fans won't remember it's his last game in his career, and they'll probably want him out.
Yeah. Julie Campbell's got back in touch again, and she's just said it's a lot to ask when you're bringing in so many players to expect them to hit the ground running. Totally agree with that, Julie. If we can stay in the playoff positions by Christmas, we'll then hopefully see Neil Warnock's talent. I think it's a big ask for this season personally. And I think, David, you've got to be realistic. There's a lot of teams. I mean, you look at Fulham, West Brom, they seem to be on another level for most teams in that Championship. And Bournemouth are not going to be far away. Stoke look like a little bit of a dark horse at the moment. But you're realistically looking at possibly maybe one or two places becoming open to teams like the Boro, and 10 other teams probably in the league will have the same sort of thoughts for a playoff place. Everybody's chasing the same dream. It's not a given that we haven't got a right to be in that top six, have we?
No, absolutely not. Every team has to earn the play. Every team has to earn that spot. I mean, and you only earn that spot with results. You let the football do the talking, and then the rest will follow. But you have to bring, like I said, the quality has to be there. There's no good having a team of average players. You need some better players than we've already got, and that's why hopefully this Van Bergen and this Sparrow will do that for us. But I've had Middlesbrough finish 6th this season in my predictions, and I've had Fulham and West Brom. Well, Fulham as champions and West Brom second. So I'm hopefully I'm right. Hopefully I'm right. Because if we're right and Middlesbrough playoff winners, I'll take that all day long.
Yeah. Matt Riley's got back in touch, David. He's saying that we all pay our money to see the team we love. All we can ask for is 100%. Neil Warnock is getting a response from his players at the moment, in Mark's opinion. I don't understand the talk of post-Warnock at the moment. Give the man a chance. And I think we were talking before we came on air tonight that Neil Warnock is still very much in credit for what he's done since he's come to the club. But as it's been alluded to with other posts tonight, football, not just at Middlesbrough, it is a results-driven business, and fans will respond in terms of how the club are doing with regards to the results on the pitch, and they'll react to that accordingly, won't they?
100%. And to be honest with you, what Mark's comment, the least you expect is players giving 100%. And I know over the last couple of seasons we haven't seen that, and that was because of the likes of Woodgate with his man management and stuff like that. Tony Pulis doesn't suffer fools, so we know we're going to get that. But you need a little bit more than that at times. And look, Wickham had togetherness, and they still got relegated last season. So you do need a little bit more than that in this league. And yeah, results do dictate. But Warnock, I think there's a little bit more to it than just the results with Warnock. I think the way he comes across in press conferences, some fans love it, some fans don't. He's very quick to point the finger at certain people, and he's making excuses up. Go back to the QPR game. He blatantly went for the referee against QPR. Now, there was 10 minutes of added on time. There was the sending off. Like you said earlier, James, the penalty for me, it was a penalty. He did, but I've seen him not given.
Yeah, true.
And the first thing he comes out and turns around and says is, Charlie Austin should have been sent off with an headbutt. He hasn't talked about him not taking Howson off. He hasn't talked about us not managing the game out. And I think sometimes that's what ruffles the feathers of the fans up. So, yes, I can see what Mark's saying, but you've got to look at, I think there's an underlying issue at the moment with Neil Warnock. And I think the less he says is probably the better.
That's not going to happen though, is it, mate?
It's not, mate. He's on TalkSport, he's on BBC, he's on everywhere. You looked at Neil Warnock's press conferences, they're like, 20 minutes long. Woodgate's were 5 minutes. And I think sometimes the less you say, the better.
No, I think it's a fair point you've made. Damon, you did mention earlier on about Joe Lumley. He had a few sticky moments, shall we say, against QPR, but he more than made up for that at Derby at the weekend, didn't he?
He did, and the goals, as I said, the goals against QPR, he should have saved them. Let's be honest. I was right behind it, and I could see it. But he made some great saves at Derby, and he did more than make up for it, in my opinion. And I just wondered what David thought was on Joe Lumley. Did you thought you had a good game personally? Because I wasn't there.
Yeah, he did, and the fans really were well behind him at Derby, Damon. I was relatively surprised, and he commanded his area. Is he an improvement on Bettinelli? Time will tell for me. Personally, I don't think so. I hope I'm wrong. Warnock said 10 to 15 points a season a good keeper wins you. I can't see that in Joe Lumley. I think he's got a mistake in him personally, but credit where credit's due. He had a really good game against Derby, and I don't know what you guys think. What is your expectations for the season? I know it's hard to say because there's still more business to do, but
yeah, I like the quote that Mark Warburton came out with after the game last week when we played QPR, and he said I think they'd finished 13th 2 seasons ago, 9th last season. So he said, I'm kidding season ticket holders and people that pay the money by saying we're not aiming to make progress, because as a football club, that's what you're aiming to do. You're aiming to better what you do season on season. It's not as simple as that, but that's what you should be doing. So if QPR are looking at top 6, well, we finished 10th last year. Surely then we should also be looking at, I'm not saying we're going to get it, and it's easy to get it because, as we said earlier, there's a lot of teams chasing it, but I definitely think that's got to be our aim this season. We've got to try and make the top 6 for me.
Yeah, I think top 6, yeah, as well.
I think we can do it with this group of players. I mean, I know there's always Mitchell van Bergen and Spora potentially coming in. Do you reckon that would be enough to get us over the line for that?
I reckon probably a creative midfielder as well, like a centre attack and midfielder. Another creative midfielder behind the front two as well. And hopefully maybe someone at the back.
Time will tell, I think, David, because I think you're relying on a lot of things, aren't you? Like luck in terms of injuries, suspensions, daft little things like you mentioned there about when you play certain teams. I think at the moment you wouldn't mind playing a side like Sheffield United.
Yeah.
You play them in November, December, there could be a very different animal. There's all sorts of things like that, but I think you can't knock the club for they've tried to, and I know people still say, why haven't they done all the business, this, that, and the other. I don't think many other clubs in the Championship have brought in as many players as we have at this stage. So
no chance.
The club have tried this year to give Neil Warnock, irrespective of whether he says they're his players or not, or his choice, they're trying to give him the tools to have a go at it. So I won't knock them for that. So it's all that of the gods.
It's either way, James, either way, if we brought in 10, 20, 30 players and or none at all, the fans would still moan. The fans somewhat moan at, wouldn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
The fans somewhat moan at. I mean, I always get behind the club no matter what. I don't know what you always get behind the club anyway. Every time I see you, you're always positive. So
good thing with Warnock, I don't think you're going to see back-to-back defeats very often because he gets a reaction out of his players, doesn't he?
Yeah. Mark's been in touch with us again there. He's come back and he said there very much that echoes that last bit you've said there, David, that Warnock's a motivational manager and he believes that he will prevail. And hopefully you're right, Mark. Really hope you are right. Anyway, weekend sees another former Boro manager and Boro legend, Tony Mowbray, return to the club. With another centre-half, Danny Ayala, who will be also making his first return to the Riverside, in a rerun of quite an infamous fixture from last season, David, where Dale Fry sustained a serious facial injury. I think a lot of people claim the manner of the defeat that day probably derailed our season. Do you think what happened in that match will play any sort of part in Neil Warnock's motivational approach to this game, shall we say, on Saturday?
Only if you get the same referee. No, I think the way Tony Mowbray was going on, the legend of the club smirking on the touchline and stuff, Neil Warnock doesn't seem to forget stuff like that. But no, I think he'll just see it as a must-needed 3 points to get back going into the international break. And I personally, I hope Ayala gets the reception he deserves because, he might have went on a bit of a bad cloud or we're led to believe he did. It's just speculation, but for what he done at the time at the club, he deserves that special reception. And he's the type of character you need in the dressing rooms, and it'd be a hard game on Saturday. I know they've lost Armstrong and what have you, but Tony Mowbray's teams play on the front foot. So if we're not up from the scratch from the kickoff, they could soon turn us over.
As you said there, Dave, they're one of the teams, I think Mowbray's teams that early in the season tend to start quite well. I know they had a defeat against West Brom at the weekend, but they tend to come out all guns blazing at the start of the season and are traditionally good starters. The 3 places above us in the table, Damon, at the moment. But as David said there, it's the last game before the first international break of the season. How important is it that we go out on a high with a win on Saturday?
It is. It's momentum, as David says. It's momentum. Momentum gets you into the next game and the next game after that. It's confidence and it's morale as well, and it's good for the area as well. It's not just the club. It's good for the area. We're always bouncing on until the next game starts, and then sometimes we get shot back down to earth. But hopefully another former Boro lad's coming back here as well. So Harry Chapman, he's going to be back here, isn't he, as well? So hopefully he gets a good reception and all, because I liked Harry Chapman when he was here. He's a good little player. But Ayala for sure. I like Danny Ayala, and we're missing that leader now. We're missing that in the dressing room, I think. And I hope, like I say, I'd put Bamba in there, to be honest, with Dale Fry on Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, one thing with Tony Moore, where he's played at the River, he's managed at the Riverside. He knows the Boro crowd. He knows how to quieten the crowd and what works and not. He's very streetwise, so he'll come with a game plan, and it's, I think, all about getting on the front foot from the first kick off for us. And I've just been saying about Ayala and QPR.
I was just going to ask you about that. That's I tell you what, we should get Joe, ring announcer, in for that one on Saturday, because I think there's going to be a battle royal between them two. Do you think there'll be a red card and a penalty maybe thrown in there as well, David?
Oh, Jesus, anything could happen with those two, couldn't there? Jesus.
But Liam Wilde there saying there that he thinks that Ipieza will bully Ayala, and then maybe Spora, if he comes in time, finishes the job off. But as we said, there's a lot of interesting matchups at the weekend, and it promises to be, as you've said, David, a hard-fought game, because it's not a given. Again, as no games are in the Championship, but it's going to be a tough encounter at the weekend, isn't it?
It is, and especially at home, you like to think you can get the results against the likes of Blackburn at home. For me, it's just making sure we get that formation right in the middle of the midfield and we get the right balance. That's going to dictate for us a lot of games this season, how we compete. Whether that's, for me, I said it against Derby, we could have looked to have gone for a midfield three with Piero in there, where there's a lack of pressure on Piero then, because he's got two supporting centre midfielders, and maybe that's something I would look at potentially doing on Saturday, taking just one of the front men off and then dropping Piero in there alongside a three and win that battle in midfield and then progress from there.
Okay, interesting. Obviously, Damon, we received a great backing in the QPR game, but even more so, I think, in the Bristol City, the first Saturday game at the Riverside. The fans will again have a big role to play at the weekend at the Riverside, won't they?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a good 20,000 odd again there on Saturday. I mean, even if there isn't, I mean, we always have a good atmosphere at the Riverside. It's always rocking. I've never seen it like that since the European nights, as David said, and the Brighton game. It's bouncing, and that's what we want all season. Make it a place so uncomfortable that teams don't want to come here.
Yeah.
And David, you mentioned there about the reception Danny Ayala should get, but obviously Tony Mowbray, absolute legend of the club from his time, not only as manager but more so playing when he was captain. And 35 years ago today marks the game at Hartlepool, where without those lads that played for us that day and the club that were the people in charge of the club, Steve Gibson, and the rest of the consortium that were involved. And obviously, big thanks to Hartlepool United for loaning us the Victoria ground on the day. Those lads that were involved that day are legends forever. So irrespective that there might have been a bit of a spat between Mowbray and Warnock last season, his status as a club legend is cemented forever, isn't it, David?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. And he's still a Boro fan now. When he was there last season, when Blackburn were playing on the Sunday and we were playing on Saturday, he came and supported us, and he'll forever be a Boro legend. And possibly, you'd want to see a statue of someone like Tony Mowbray outside the ground, and you'd fully get behind that. And I think we did him a bit dirty over as a manager, and I think a lot of people's memories are a little bit tarnished because of what he did as a manager. He wasn't given the support he should have done, and Steve Gibson didn't back him. And I just hope he gets the reception he deserves as well, because he is a legend of this club.
Yeah, great shout, mate.
Yeah, I felt sorry for him as a manager, actually, Tony Mowbray, because it was shortly after Gordon Strachan, wasn't it? And honestly, he deserves so much better, and hopefully he's doing well at Blackburn. So as long as it's not against us.
Definitely, yeah. Boro fans echo those thoughts. Slayer saying, big up Tony. And Mark Riley again echo these 100%, these statements from Mark. He said, those lads kept our club alive. No Boro fans should forget those lads who play without wages and as we said there, without them, we wouldn't have a club to follow now. So we're always indebted to them boys. But on to Saturday, predictions for the big game, final Boro match before the international break. Come to you first, Damon. Boro v Blackburn. What's the score going to be?
2-1, Boro.
2-1, Boro. David?
I think we'll nick it 1-0. I think it'll be a fairly tight game. What about yourself?
You've read my mind again. I don't see a lot of goals in it on Saturday, and I think it'll be a cagey game. And very much like the Bristol City game, I just hope we come out on top, the right side of it, and a 1-0 will suit me all day long. Sam Colton's gone the same, 1-0. Mark Riley, 2-0. So Boro fans remaining optimistic. And it would be, you can't put too fine a point on it or underestimate, David, that it would be a big 3 points because it just keeps the feel-good factor and momentum going, doesn't it?
Yeah, it keeps you in touch and distance going into the national break, and then the new signings who come in don't have a lot of pressure on them to hit the ground running when we go to Coventry away from home. So, you know, it is a big point in 3 points in that respect. And we don't tend to do well going into international breaks. That's my only worry over the past few seasons. We've gone in with a defeat. So let's hope it turns round for the weekend.
Fingers crossed, pal. Yeah, Michael Pellin's got in touch again there and said, remember Hartlepool so well. Yeah, if you're old enough, you're showing our age now, Michael. Remember going back to that. But yeah, that was the starting point for the magnificent journey that we've been on the last 35 years. And I know at the weekend, David, you wanted to mention something about Derby and the Derby County fans before we close the show tonight.
Yeah, it was just a quick one with the incident at half time. I mean, there was a lot of banter between the fans before and during the first half. Them giving us over, we were giving them the Steve Gibson chance and the Mel Morris chance, and it was a good atmosphere. But the stewards, especially the police officer, the first aid services were a little bit lackadaisical, but the police and the stewards were top notch. And I just pray that little boy who got rushed out at half time has a speedy recovery and his parents get the results that they're expecting and hoping for and find the answers. I've seen that he's okay and he's getting back to normal, but I hope they look at and find a solution. And the Derby fans were fantastic. They were singing for him when he was getting carried down, and it was a heart-stopping moment for both sets of fans. So credit where credit's due. The Derby County should take a lot of plaudits for that.
Yeah, spot on, mate. Good shout. Liam Wild there also saying at least the young fans on the mend. Yep, I echo those statements, Liam. Thanks for getting in touch with us. Unfortunately, everybody, that's all we've got time for this week's edition of the Monday Night Show. Hope you've enjoyed it. My thanks go out to David and Damon for joining me. If you'd like to appear on any future shows, just send us a message on Boro Fan TV and we'll try and accommodate you at some point during the season. We're back again next Monday at 7 o'clock to look back on the Blackburn game and have a review of the Championship season as a whole so far. The transfer window is also about to close this time next week, so no doubt we'll have plenty to talk about on that section of the programme. So, until then, from me, Damon and David and everyone at Boro Fan TV, good night, take care of yourselves and up the Boro.
Up the Boro.
Up the Boro.